I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on the Spotlight Network, we're uncovering a heartfelt and thought-provoking story with an amazing author. His name is Richard Caits, and he has penned a powerful book. It is called Strawberry Smoothies, Vanilla Ice Cream, and Lots of Drugs. The personal book chronicles his mother's 8-month hospitalization and passing while delving into the role of Big Pharma and the unexpected bonds formed in dark times. Join us as Richard shares how he turned his grief into a compelling narrative of hope and friendship. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Richard, good to see you here today on Spotlight. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Your title, it's my pleasure. Your title's very compelling: Strawberry Smoothies, Vanilla Ice Cream, and Lots of Drugs. Why did you name it that?
Well, that's a good question. My initial title was going to be uh, Fentanyl Nation, but
Mhm.
then I thought about it. Sorry, I'm in a not. This isn't the greatest spot for this. Let me just move down here.
Sure.
My initial title was going to be Fentanyl Nation. Yeah, this is quiet here. My initial title was going to be Fentanyl Nation, but I decided, there's just too many books with nation in the title. It's very derivative. There's Prozac Nation, excellent book. Fast Food Nation, there's a lot of nation books. So then I thought, I really started thinking, and it just came to me one day because I was in the hospital and they were giving her vanilla ice cream, as they often do in hospitals. And I asked her if there was anything that she would want from outside, and she couldn't really have any solid food because she was aspirating on food, having trouble swallowing. Unfortunately, the meds did it, and she said she wanted a strawberry smoothie. So I got one from a deli slash juice health food store that was right nearby, and lots of drugs, of course, because that's what the hospital gave her, lots of drugs.
Right, right.
So vanilla ice cream, strawberry smoothies, and lots of jugs. That's basically what she got for 8 months straight.
Amazing, amazing. Your mother's hospitalization had a big impact on you. Tell us about how it affected you.
Uh, I mean, it really affected me. I mean, I just got progressively and increasingly more angry as the months wore on. I thought they were doing her good, but as 30 days wore into 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, and on and on. I just saw like they weren't doing anything for her. She was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. Uh, at one point in Elmhurst Hospital, they had her on fentanyl. They didn't even bother uh, to run it by me. Nobody, no doctor, nobody called me up and said, "Oh, hey, by the way, we have your mother on fentanyl." And it got me thinking, like, these hospitals just do things without even letting you know. The only reason I even found out that she was on fentanyl was because one day, as I was in her hospital room, I just walked over to the machine that she was hooked up to. I said, "Oh, let me see what this machine says." Oh, fentanyl, 50 cc's of fentanyl. Well, I don't like the sound of that. So I spoke to a doctor right then and there. I said, first of all, I don't appreciate that you guys put her on fentanyl without putting me on it. I mean,
Mhm.
fentanyl has legitimate medical uses. It does. I
Right,
understand that. But if you're going to do it, at least let me know so that I can have something to say about it. Either yes or no. And in that
right,
case, I said no, take her off of
right,
it. And they did.
right.
But
Yeah,
by that point, the damage was done.
yeah. Awful, awful. Your book also explores the role of big pharma in modern medicine. Tell us about that aspect of it.
Well, she was in three hospitals in over a period of 8 months. The fourth facility she was in wasn't a hospital; it was more of a rehab place. But although, in my opinion, it was really more of a hospice. But they had her on in New York Presbyterian. They had her on Depakote, Zyprexa. Those are antipsychotic drugs. It's like, why would they
Yeah,
have her on that? She wasn't psychotic.
right.
They had her on something else called alprazolam,
Mhm.
which I didn't like the sound of. I looked it up. They just had her on a whole host of meds in also in what was it Metropolitan Hospital in New York, worst hospital ever, by the way. Don't ever go to Metropolitan Hospital. If you know anybody sick, tell them avoid Metropolitan Hospital if they can.
Yeah.
It's in Manhattan. Uh, they had her on stuff there in the psych ward, drugs whose names I can't even remember, but very long names which I didn't like the sound of.
Right.
And it just got me thinking, like, the drugs are really what killed her.
Yeah. They had her
You
on
know.
so many drugs. Yeah, that takes a toll on a person, no doubt. Um, Tell us a little bit about the hope you did find and the light you did find and the friendships you did make during such a difficult time for you.
Well, I mean, hope. I mean, it's kind of hard to say hope. I mean, in the end, she did die.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just mean hope in the sense that I got like there were good people that I met in the hospital. Like not everybody was a big pharma doctor who was just
Right.
out to drug her and call it a day. I did meet compassionate people in the hospital who truly cared. Unfortunately, they were kind of in the minority. But I did meet good people in the hospital who I could tell were compassionate, and I made friendships. So I didn't really make any new friendships, but like the friends I already had, they really pulled
Right.
through. And like people from like my old job where I used to work, they really turned out in numbers to the hospital to advocate, because I'm convinced that if not for several of my friends who advocated for her in the hospital, she would have died, you know 2 months into her hospital stay instead of 8 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Good to have caring people around you at that point to speak out about what needs to be done. What do
Yeah,
you hope readers take away from the story? What do you hope they learn from it? What do you hope they experience?
just to learn from the mistakes that I made, because I did make mistakes. Like, for one thing, I should have had a lawyer. Like, I really regret. Unfortunately, sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, you don't always think of certain things. It's like you always think of things afterwards. It's like, oh, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? Number one is like the most important thing is have a lawyer who will actually advocate for you in the hospital. Because I had a lawyer, but he wasn't like a fire in the belly type. He was more of a he wasn't that a fighter type. So that's one of the biggest things I can really recommend is get a lawyer, somebody who will actually fight for your rights or the rights of your family in the hospital. Um, don't believe anything doctors say. Whatever they say, call them out on it. Whatever it is, don't ever accept the first answer you get from the first doctor you talk to.
Yeah. Got to question what they tell you, make sure it's right. You can, confirm different things on the internet
Yeah,
nowadays.
yeah,
That's helpful.
you
Was
have
there
to.
anything what surprised you most about the healthcare system during your mother's hospitalization?
I really, I have to say, really, nothing was actually surprising. But I basically just came to learn. I mean, I already kind of knew it, but I guess it was confirmed even more. Like the American healthcare system, especially in states like New York, it's really terrible. It's like doctors will try to fight you on like every little thing, even requests that should be reasonable and sound reasonable, and it doesn't sound like you're asking a whole lot. Doctors have to fight you on it. It's like I had to pull teeth in Metropolitan Hospital when my mother was in the psych ward just to get her scrubs cleaned up. They were covered in urine and feces, and it's like even that I had to make noise about. It's like it sounds reasonable, right? Like a patient shouldn't have
They come
scrubs in the
clean.
psych ward that are filthy, and yet they were
Yeah.
giving me all sorts of a mouthful of excuses for why they couldn't clean her up. Finally, after sending like 20, 30 emails over a period of a month, 30 days to like 20 different people in the hospital, higher ups of the hospital, where her scrubs finally cleaned up. Like, this is supposed to be a first world country. I shouldn't have to make noise about having her scrubs in the hospital, having clean scrubs.
Yeah,
Finally, they were cleaned up, but it's like it shouldn't have taken that much effort.
exactly, exactly. It sounds like you had a terrible experience, and I'm glad that you're sounding the alarm for others who could go through similar things. The name of the book is Struggling Smoothies, Vanilla Ice Cream, and Lots of Drugs. It is a deeply personal book that chronicles Richard's mother's 8-month stay in the hospital until her death. It dives into the big role of Big Pharma and the unexpected bonds formed in dark times. Richard, thank you so much for joining me here today on Spotlight and sharing your story.
Thank you.
I
Thank you
appreciate
for
your
having
time.
me.
To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.